So I thought we were all finished with these top wines of the year list, but here we go. Decanter just released one a few days ago, so hey. Decanter is a British magazine, probably maybe the most influential British wine magazine. I have friends that have written articles for them. People that write for them or on a freelance basis usually have some kind of prestige in Europe. Even though now I like to poo-poo on how they score wines, I think the scoring is actually pretty darn high. But the cool thing is they have writers from all over the world and they cover a bunch of different regions, everything from Eastern Europe to Asia, Europe of course, and recently they've actually expanded into North America. My good friend Clive Pershouse is the editor-in-chief, or I think he's the main editor for the US publication. So I saw it on his LinkedIn, so I'm excited to check this out. I have not looked at the list yet. I'm hoping that we'll see some unique wines and not just big name stuff. So let's take a look here. I'm not a Decanter premium subscriber, so I can't see all the scores, but hopefully I can still see the wines. Tina, okay. First one up. Same as Wine Spectator, top 10 wines of the year. Louis Roeder Cristal. Okay, here, a couple of wines that weren't covered in previous lists. The Billicar Saman Louis Simon Blanc de Blanc Brut Champagne France 2008. I really like the Billicar Saman style. I really like the Brut, the extra Brut one, and also the Rosé. I think just the house style, a real dry type of style in terms of champagne. Wow! De la Riva Vino de Pasto Macharnudo Jerez, Spain. So this is a dry sherry, basically, a dry fresh sherry made out of Palomino. I don't know if you can, it's not made in the sherry style. This is just kind of a plain white wine. That's cool that they actually had the gumption to put that in. I don't really know a ton about those wines made in Jerez that are, normal wines that are not sherry. I have had some nice dry Palominos from Baja, Mexico when I was spending time in there. It's kind of a neutral grape, but it can make nice wines in hot weather. Up here we have the Vietti Derthona Timorasso from Colli Tortonesi in Piedmont, Italy. Vietti is one of the great producers. Nebbiolo, Barolos. The Barolos are excellent. Their standard Barolo, the Castiglione, is always a great value for money, as well as their Nebbiolo d'Alba, which is the Perbacco. I think it's great. Timorasso is a white grape that's really starting to gain a lot of momentum in terms of the wine geek circles. Vietti's is known as one of the best ones, so that's cool that that's up here. Okay. Bernhard Hubert, Schlossberg Chardonnay, Grosses Gewächs from Baden, Germany. Bernhard Hubert from Baden, one of my favorite producers in Germany of Pinot Noir. I actually haven't had their Chardonnay, so I'd like to give this a go. I'm liking the list already. The Bisci, Vigneto, Fogliano, Verdicchio de Matelica, La Marche, Italy. Verdicchio is, to me, one of the greatest white wine grapes in Italy. For me, it's right up there with Friulano, also with Fiano is Italy's greatest white wine grapes. It's really got like this unique grassy green lime type flavors, has real crunchy acidity. Last year at this time, I did a blind tasting of Etna Bianco versus Verdicchio versus Fiano. We tried to figure out the differences, which was an interesting tasting. Nice! Next up, the Bodegas Muriel Viña Muriel Blanco Reserva from Rioja, Spain 2013. Rioja is known as a red wine producing region, although they produce some beautiful whites as well. I have had this and I think it's worth checking out. They're not so fruit forward. A lot of times they're real mineral driven. I think the best one that I've ever had is the Maluri, and that's a famous one. It's quite an expensive wine. Muga makes a white Rioja that's pretty affordable, worth checking out. This is a good list, Sommé. The Domaine Berthet-Bondet Château-Chalon from the Jura, France. This is an outstanding wine. Vin jaune made under the floor, so it's aged under a layer of yeast, which they call the floor. Gives off these real nutty type flavors, the same way that you're gonna make certain types of sherry, certain types of wines from Sardinia, especially something like Amontillado, Manzanillas, Fino sherries as well. It's a nutty style. This is really hardcore geek wine. It's not for everybody. The last time I had this, I can't remember what vintage it was, but I think I scored like, in my head, I know in my notes even, I think I scored like 96 points for those that like geeky type of stuff. Speaking of Friulano, the Marco Faluga Armani Friulano from Colli, I think it's Outstanding, outstanding grape. Not really high in acid, a lot of pineapple, it's quite fruity, but the acidity's low, so it's a little bit softer. But the wine's actually aged pretty nice because the pHs are pretty low, even though the acidity isn't super high. I like this list a lot. Shaw Smith M3 Chardonnay from Adelaide Hills, South Australia. I don't know how much this is, but I know it's really good wine. And the Sean Smith Pinot Noir is worth checking out too. Really good stuff. Okay, the Chateau Vignex Saint-Emilion Premier Grand Cru Classé from Bordeaux. One of the greatest right bank Bordeaux in the world. Has a real high percentage of Cabernet Franc in it. This is not a cheap wine, but it's kind of one of those wines that you have to taste if you want to taste some of the benchmarks. The López de Haro Clásica Gran Reserva from Rioja, Spain, 2004. The thing about Gran Reservas in Rioja is they're held back, so when they release them, they're really mature, really aged, and these wines aren't ridiculously expensive. So if you want to get a taste of old school red wine, what it used to taste like before technology started to take over, you want to look at having some Rioja Gran Reservas. I personally love these wines. A lot of tobacco notes, a lot of cedar notes. Not for everybody, but for me, yes, I want it. Some nice Barolos, some repeats. The Tenuta della Taranare Calderara Sultana, Etna, Sicily, Italy, 2019. This is Nerello Mascalese. I was just actually at the vineyards of this property last year. I have a vlog on Etna. It's just going a little bit slow. This is one of the more premier wines from Tenuta della Ternare. I think they do an excellent job because a lot of times Etna Rossos to me can be a little bit overpriced for what you're getting. Their top stuff is actually really good, but I think one of their best values is you just buy their base Etna Rosso. I think it's $24 around the world. I think you're going to be really happy. Domaine Alain Vosges, Le Vie Fontaine, Cornas. Talked about Cornas in a previous episode. Syrah-based wines, real leathery, real tough. This is one of the icons, one of the big producers. These wines are not cheap, they're hard to find, but if you want to experience something completely different, you got to get your hands on a Northern Rhone Syrah. Cornas, Côte-Rôtie, Hermitage. The Pasqua Familia, Pasqua Valpolicella, Ripasso Superiore, Veneto. I was just at a release party of Pasqua last year. I think it's a bigger estate. For people that like Amarone, which I don't, it's a little bit too rich, too big with me. If you go for a Valpolicella Superiore or Ripasso Superiore, like we see right here, what Ripasso means is they use some of those skins that they use to make Amarone and they throw them back into the wine, so the wine gains a little bit of richness. For me, it's a nice balance because they're rich enough, but it's not too big and they're worth checking out. Château Le Carmes, Haut-Brion, Pessac-Léognan, Bordeaux, France. I was just at this estate a couple months ago. I really like this wine because it has a high proportion of Cabernet Franc. It's evenly distributed Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, although Cabernet Franc, I think right here it says 37%. And these wines are not super expensive, so I think it's worth checking out. We have the Literai 1 Acre Pinot Noir, Anderson Valley, Mendocino County. Mendocino's an excellent place in California for Pinot Noir. Literai for me, very good. To me, I don't really get blown away by them, but I think the wines are really nice. Wine by far, the top prize by far, Pinot Noir from Geelong, Victoria, Australia, 2019. Geelong is producing some killer Pinot Noir, and these wines by far are outstanding. Chardonnays, the Pinot Noirs, they're not cheap. I think they're around $100 if you can find them. They're just really classy stuff. Balasha, Tokaj Asu, Six Petuños. Balasha is one of the best producers in Tokaj when it comes to Asu wines. The wines are pretty concentrated, so people that know Sepsi style, those wines are concentrated. It's quite similar. The cool thing about Balasha too, it's not an international company. It's a local Hungarian that actually does it. I think his dries maybe are not as good as some of his sweet wines, but this is an outstanding wine, Six Petuños. And if you want to step down, I think he still does Five Petuños. Those wines offer a little more value for money. Tokaj, just an incredible experience. There's so much acidity, it wipes off your palate, it's just really unique. I think it's a nice and varied list, pretty interesting. Let me know, do you read Decanter magazine? What do you think of some of their scores, some of the reviews? Drop it in the comments below, and have a safe New Year's Eve and a great 2023. I'll see you soon.